So today we're going to be doing a toothpaste making session. I don't know if anybody's had a go at making their own toothpaste before, have you? Anybody been making toothpaste? So, why to have a go at making your own natural toothpaste? We're going to start by looking at some tubes of shop-bought toothpaste here. We've got Colgate. Now, quite a few years ago I noticed that when I use mainstream, very strong shop-bought toothpaste, not only does it lift the paint off my window ledge where the toothbrushes are, but it gives me ulcers in my mouth, and it gives my mouth a kind of really sore feeling. So I've always been a label reader, so I was reading the labels and I was wondering what was in toothpaste that was doing this to my paintwork and to my mouth. Now, if we read the labels of toothpaste, normal toothpaste from the supermarket, we've got the usual things that you might expect in there. Obviously we expect fluoride in shop-bought toothpaste, and we'll look at fluoride in a little bit. But other things that are in there, that one of the things that is responsible for causing ulcers and mouth soreness, if you do get that from mainstream toothpaste, is SLS. Anybody that saw the toiletries making video will know that SLS is sodium lauryl sulfate. Now, in shampoos and things, it's the stuff that burns your eyes, although they've changed it to sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a bit more gentle in shampoo. However, we still find sodium lauryl sulfate, a known mucous membrane irritator, in toothpaste. So I decided a few years ago that I'd design my own toothpaste that was kind of more nourishing instead of stripping. And I've never looked back, really. So we'll look at some of the other ingredients. So there's a helicopter hovering above. So we'll look at some of the other ingredients that have been found in mainstream toothpaste. Now, one of them that Colgate used to have in up until about 2018 was triclosan. Again, if you saw my natural toiletries video, you'll know that triclosan is an antibacterial agent. So you can kind of understand why they wanted to put it in toothpaste to kind of help mitigate the bacteria in the mouth. However, triclosan, in the production of triclosan, it releases dioxins. Now, the World Health Organization say that dioxins, they have a half-life in the body of between 7 and 11 years, and they particularly like to be stored in the endocrine system and fatty breast tissues. So triclosan was in our toothpaste. We were putting it in our mouths a couple of times a day, and along with that, the dioxins. So thankfully, Colgate have stopped using that now. So other things you might see on the label are eugenol. Now, there's nothing wrong with eugenol if you're wondering what that was. Anybody that came on my wild food walk will have met this plant here. So if you see eugenol on the label in toothpaste, it's simply cloves. Now, you've probably long been aware that clove oil, like if anybody's grandma or grandpa have had clove oil in little bottles. So clove oil, we've not long known that to be kind of good for oral health. It kills bacteria, it reduces inflammation. We do have our own native version of eugenol. This here, Woodhaven's root. So if you see eugenol, which is on the back of this toothpaste here, you don't need to worry about that. Another thing you might see is glycerin. I do use glycerin in natural toiletries. That's glycerin, it's a clear liquid. And why they put glycerin in is simply to help it squeeze out of the tube. Now, when I used to make my homemade toothpaste in tubes, I used glycerin to help it squeeze out the tube because that's what I thought you had to do. But then I learned a bit more about glycerin and the fact that actually if you're making a fat-based toothpaste, glycerin has no place in it. So instead, I put my toothpaste in pots so it doesn't need to squeeze, and it doesn't need glycerin in to make it squeezable. So you might see glycerin in, which is not really a problem. Eugenol, limonene is something else that you might see. Again, that's not a problem in shop-bought toothpaste. Really, my issue was with the artificial antibacterial and with the amount of fluoride, which we'll look at next, and the sodium lauryl sulfate. So fluoride then is a big debate about fluoride. You know, is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Why is it really there? Now, I test water regularly, and I've got water testing strips. We have no fluoride in our water here. But the fluoride levels in toothpaste, I don't know if anybody's ever read the back of toothpaste. So this is a shop's own, and this is Colgate, and they have exactly the same amount of fluoride. Now, there's 3 types of fluoride that you can have in a toothpaste, and for some reason they tend to use sodium fluoride. Now, Sodium fluoride has been shown to be the least effective out of the three that they could use, the least effective at preventing demineralization of the teeth. This experiment was done taking some teeth and putting them in citric acid, and each tooth had a different form of fluoride protecting it. So they found that the sodium fluoride was the least useful in protecting teeth, but for some reason that's the one they've all got in. Now, the other thing to look at is the parts per million of fluoride. Some of them, like children's toothpaste for example, might be 200-300 parts per million, 500. If you get the type that burns my mouth like this, if you look at the parts per million of fluoride, sodium fluoride in this, it's about 1,500 parts per million. Now that's quite a lot, it sounds quite a lot. If you break it down, to work out how much parts per million actually is, you divide it by 10,000. So 1,500 parts per million of sodium fluoride in your normal toothpaste actually amounts to something like 0.13, something like that. So 0.13% that is. So it's not that huge. Now the thing about sodium fluoride though is it's very, very absorbable. So that when we brush our teeth with it, it remains in our saliva for about 2 hours afterwards. Now that can be a good thing, of course, because it continues protecting your teeth against demineralization, and fluoride does do that, there's no doubt about that. But the other thing, of course, is that whilst it's in the saliva for 2 hours, our bodies are absorbing it. And where does it go once it's in our bodies? There's some arguments that it causes calcification of different organs and glands, so the bones as well. Now, I have read that one kind of antidote to that, if you like, is calcium gluconate, but I don't know enough about that if you wanted to research that. So we've got glycerin, eugenol, limonene, sodium lauryl sulfate, which is my big nasty that I've tried to avoid in toothpaste, and we've got fluoride, usually in the form of sodium fluoride and at that kind of level. The other thing about fluoride I wanted to tell you is, have you heard of fluorosis? Now, some people brush the teeth all the time, but they have yellow teeth. Now, one of the reasons that is, you might be surprised to learn, is that too much fluoride can actually give you yellow teeth. So it's another reason to look at the parts per million. To me, you don't need the 1,500. I used to, when my children were little, I would intersperse using like a Weleda, no fluoride at all toothpaste with a baby toothpaste, and I used to do the same. So you can, if you're worried about fluoride, you don't have to cut it out altogether, but you could look at reducing it by using a kid's toothpaste. So yeah, because it actually can make your teeth yellow in too high dose. So the other interesting thing about mainstream toothpaste is it never includes fats. And when you think that nature-based cultures, when they've analysed the dental health of bodies that they've dug up of our ancestors, and when they look at the dental health of people in the jungle who don't have the same amount of fluoridated water or toothpaste or dental care that we have, their teeth have been absolutely amazing, and they wondered why this was, and they've come to the conclusion it's because their diets are rich in essential fatty acids. So you might be really surprised to learn that the base of my toothpaste, unlike shop-bought toothpaste which kind of leaves my mouth feeling stripped, my toothpaste is actually based on fat. And the idea of that is that the fat nourishes the gums, and a lot of demineralization of teeth comes from when we eat sugary food. It's the bacteria that break it down and cause acid. So when we have the fats, it kind of just seems to protect the gums themselves, and of course your gums are the things that hold your teeth in. So it's really important that your gums are actually nourished so that they can do their job. Now I'm going to talk you through how I make my toothpaste, and as you can see, I've actually run out at the moment, my empty pot, so this is timed really, really well. It's fatty and it's green, so needless to say, my kids don't use this toothpaste. It doesn't leave your teeth green, and I'll explain why it's fatty and green, and what fats are used. Now, in addition to fats as well, natural toothpastes you might notice have got abrasive qualities, and a lot of people say to me, I don't understand this whole idea of adding clay or adding sodium bicarbonate or adding charcoal, because surely that kind of scrubs the enamel off your teeth. So again, we'll look at some of the abrasives as well during when I'm making this. So the fat component then. In my toothpaste, I use 3 different kinds of fats, and the reason that is because We want omega oils in there. We want vitamin E oil, and just this kind of nourishing fats here. Now you can, if you're vegetarian or vegan, you can use plant-based fats for your omega oils and your linoleic acid. You do not have to have animal products at all. So, but I tend to use, in here, I've got a little bit of rapeseed fat, and then I've got hemp oil and pumpkin seed oil, which is just a bottle. It's just a bottle of hemp and pumpkin seed oil mix. It's got lots of omega oils in. And then here is a blob of lanolin. I don't know if you can see that. And then the other thing I add to those fats to get them to bind together is a bit of beeswax. We'll look at beeswax at the very end in the form of natural homemade fillings as well. So beeswax is absolutely fine on the teeth. Gives it a lovely kind of coating. It's breathable, protects the teeth, and it binds all of these fatty ingredients together. So when I melt all of this in the bain-marie here, if you can see, the bain-marie is a double boiler. So you would melt fats and beeswax in the same way that you would melt chocolate. You would never do it over a direct heat. You would always put it into either a double boiler or in a bowl over a pan of hot water. And you simply melt the fats together and the beeswax, and then we have these other plant ingredients. I'm going to just show you the plate of other things now. Now what we've got here in my toothpaste, we're not putting all of this in, it's just so you can see it. I use clay rather than sodium bicarbonate, bicarb of soda, simply because I don't like salty toothpaste. That's just my preference. I have got a tiny bit of homemade sea salt here, and I put the tiniest little bit in, but I don't use the bicarb as abrasive. It's just too much for me, salty, so I put a little bit of that in for minerals. I've got my calcium bentonite clay here. Now this green powder here, this is stevia. But you can put all kinds of, this is just to slightly sweeten the peppermint oil. You don't have to have that in. I'm just going to lift you up again. Now, you don't have to have a sweetener in your toothpaste at all, but if you buy shop-bought toothpaste, it always has something like sorbitol in, something sweet, and you might think that sounds a bit odd. Why are toothpaste companies putting a sugar alcohol in? Surely that's bad for your teeth. Well, sugar alcohol, so that's types like sorbitol and xylitol. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but they are sugar alcohols, and they do not feed oral bacteria, so they're actually safe sugars to have in your mouth, and it simply makes the peppermint taste nicer. So I tend to use peppermint oil so that it feels fresh, because I do like the taste of shop-bought toothpaste. So I use peppermint oil, but on its own, without that little bit of sweetness, it's not that nice. So I use stevia, which is just the same as the ingredients that they would use, in that it doesn't feed the oral bacteria. Now, I've grown my own stevia. This here is homegrown dried stevia, and then you simply powder it into that green powder there. So that's what that ingredient is. Okay, other green powders, plant powders you could put in would be, this is sage out of the garden, so you could dry and powder sage leaves to put in. Alright, now some toothpastes that you find, you can buy them online, natural toothpaste powders in a pot like that. And they just, literally, they just say the salt or the bicarb, maybe a bit of charcoal or the clay and the peppermint oil mixed together, and you just rub it around. And that's fine, but again, it misses the fat, and that's the point I want to get across today, how important the fat is. So, when you melt those fats together, this is what it looks like. I just call this my universal balm. I use it for everything. Use it for the ends of hair, use it for body, for even leather boots or kitchen worktops, and I use it as my toothpaste base. So this was the bit of rapeseed fat, the lanolin, the beeswax, and the oil. Okay, and that's how it is after it's melted and solidified. So what I tend to do, I'll just lower this again. So you're going to mix your fats and your dried ingredients together now. So a blob of fat, and you can vary the ingredients as well. You don't have to have, as much or as little clay or as much or as little stevia. And then I simply just put bits of the dried ingredients in, bit of clay, bit of stevia to make it nice and sweet, tiniest pinch of homemade sea salt. And I like peppermint oil, like I said, because I do like that fresh feeling. And in a pot that size that I've shown you, that's a 30 ml pot. So I'd just probably put about 10 drops of peppermint oil in there. And if you had have wanted to dry the clove root out, the wood avens root, you could have dried that out and ground that in and put it in with the powders. And then it's just literally a matter of mixing it all up. Now there's something else I like to put in, and that's a vitamin E capsule. This is evening primrose oil, and vitamin E acts as it's a natural preservative in anything that's fat or oil based. Because it's an antioxidant, how it works to self-preserve the product is it reduces the amount of available oxygen really for bacterial growth. So not only is it nourishing in itself, it helps to self-preserve the product. And this is what evening primrose looks like when it grows. It has a big yellow, almost deep cup-like flower on the top, and it grows to about 4 feet tall. And this oil is extracted from the seeds. I do save the seeds, but haven't got an oil press. But if you had an oil press, you could press your own evening primrose oil seeds, and then you could add your own of this. But equally, you can just add a capsule. So just going to nick that and squeeze that in. Let's bite it. Squeeze a bit of that in, and that also is really good for gum health. So you're just going to mix it all together. Now, one of the reasons I mentioned I'd tell you about glycerin, when I used to put this mixture into a tube, I used to get lovely, beautiful stainless, like little tin tubes that looked really lovely and fancy. However, in winter it was an absolute so-and-so in the cold bathroom trying to squeeze this stuff out. So I started adding a bit of glycerin, which helped make it squeezy. However, I then learned that if you add glycerin, I'm going to lift this back up a bit now. If you add glycerin to your homemade toothpaste, because glycerin isn't fat soluble, it actually forms a barrier between your gums and the good fat ingredients and the oil ingredients. So I then removed the glycerin because obviously the whole point in having the fat and the oils in the toothpaste is to nourish your gums. So there was no point in having this kind of glycerin barrier there. So now, instead of using the beautiful little tubes, which if you live somewhere with a cold bathroom, you can never squeeze them, I just use these lovely little pots. The actual recipe for what I call my universal balm that I use as a body butter, as for everything, and the base for this toothpaste, that's in my book. But the basic is beeswax, oil, and some kind of fat, and melted together. So in here, I think I've put peppermint in, yeah. So as you can see, it doesn't look very nice, but it certainly doesn't make your teeth go green, if you can see mine. And I tell you, since I've been using this, my gums have never felt so nourished. I never get a single ulcer now, never get a sore mouth, because I haven't got that sodium lauryl sulfate stripping away at the mucous membranes. So it doesn't look great. This will harden a little bit, and all you do, it's ideal if you've got a family, you would have a pot each. Obviously you have a little pot each, and you can put the name on there, and then you simply stick your toothbrush in it. Of course, our ancestors would have used chewing sticks. We talked about that when we looked at the oak, so a little oak twig, or you could use apple or pear or birch, and they simply would feather the end of that stick by chewing it, and then kind of clean the teeth with that. Also, they would have simply chewed clay, just little clay balls that they found in the earth, just chew that as a way of cleaning their teeth. Now, getting on to the abrasives, like I promised I'd tell you about the abrasives now. What have they all got in common, the abrasive stuff that you find in toothpaste? We'd said charcoal, we'd said calcium carbonate, which is chalk or limestone you sometimes find in, clay, so calcium bentonite, and what was the other one? Calcium bentonite, charcoal, clay, bicarbonate of soda. The thing they all have in common, the reason they're in toothpaste, is not for abrasiveness necessarily, it's actually for the fact that they have a high pH. Now, why that's relevant, having a high pH, is good for oral health, because bacteria tend to thrive on an acid environment. So they're not just there for abrasives, okay? They're there because they raise the pH and make it very difficult for the the bacteria to grow. Now, getting back to the argument about are abrasives not bad for your teeth, are you not just kind of brushing the minerals off? If you think that they actually clean the Taj Mahal with bentonite clay, and they polish the marble with it, so, and it doesn't leave any scratches. So as long as you don't put too much in, and again, you can make your own toothpaste and try it, and if you think, oh, that feels too abrasive, I don't like that, then next time you make it, simply put less in, all right? But that's the thing that they all have in common. Calcium carbonate is just made of sea creature shells, snails, and it actually forms something like 4% of the Earth's surface, so we're not short of it. Calcium bentonite, you might think that's something, because they use it on the Taj Mahal, you might think that's tropical import. I never use tropical imports. We are actually one of the world's big suppliers of calcium bentonite, in the form of bentonite clay, sorry, in the form of Fuller's Earth. Sheffield, I believe. Sheffield is one of the largest deposits of it in our country. So we can get these things relatively local and natural. So I mentioned about no glycerin, I mentioned about pH. So the other thing to tell you about, we've talked about chewing sticks as well as your toothbrush, so you could make this and have a chewing stick. And then the final thing is, I don't know if anybody's ever had a hole in their tooth where food gets stuck in and then you get a gum infection, and before you know it, you're in real pain. Well, in a survival situation, toothache like that is actually life-threatening, because before you know it, that infection can spread into your jaw, and then it can spread into your face, and your face swells up, and it can kill you with sepsis. So it's really important to know how to block those holes in times of not having dentists. Now, I'll put my toothpaste away, there you go. So that's when we come back to beeswax again. Right, one form of blocking a hole, you've done all this wonderful tooth care, but you can still get a hole. One way of blocking it is to melt some beeswax and add a couple of drops of, I would use pine oil. Excuse me, there's helicopters flying all over today for some reason. You can put a couple of drops of pine oil into the melted beeswax, but equally you could, if you had nerve pain, because that hole was going right down to the nerve, you could add a couple of drops of St. John's wort, which is meant also to help with nerve pain. So you want something antibacterial in there, and of course you've got your clove type oil as well, which in our country would be Woodhaven's, so you could add that to the beeswax, and then you simply push the softened beeswax into the hole, and it stops the air getting in, it stops any more food getting in. Obviously you would make sure that hole was really clean first. The next stop is always to get to a dentist, but at least putting the beeswax with some kind of antiseptic and inflammation and pain relieving oil in the beeswax will possibly prevent serious infection until you can. Now, beeswax melts at 67 degrees, so if you did need to get it out, you could just maybe have a hot drink and then get it out so that the dentist could then fix the hole. So there's lots of things we can look to around us really for dealing with our own mouth care. Another thing is sometimes if you have toothache, it's nearly always because there's some kind of infection. Food's stuck somewhere and it's got an infection. So all I tell my kids to do, and all I've ever done, we've never needed to go to the dentist or the doctors for tooth infection. We just gargle. Just gargle with I mean, it could be mouthwash and non-alcohol mouthwash, but equally apple cider vinegar with some of these herbs in there. You've got your sage, you've got your Woodhaven's root for the eugenol, a bit of pine oil. So there's lots of things out there that you can use for mouthwash, for fillings, for toothbrush, for toothpaste. And the reasons to do that, to look to that, is not just because it's natural and we're avoiding all the crap like SLS and sorbitol, but also because it's actually cheaper. It is cheaper for me to make pots of my own healthy toothpaste, it's better for my mouth, than it is to buy even the cheapest toothpaste from the supermarket. So yeah, I hope I've inspired you to look to making your own toothpaste. And if anybody's got any questions, just ask in the comments below, or let me know how you've found different toothpastes that you've made. A lot of people as well, they ask me about coconut oil pulling. Well, obviously because at Wild Harvest we don't believe in tropical imports, but the reason coconut oil, it does work, it is very good, and you could use that as your fat base for this toothpaste if you didn't want to go into all this kind of stuff. It's the lauric acid. Lauric acid in coconut oil is antimicrobial, so that does work as well. It's just not something that we at Wild Harvest are interested in because it's a tropical import. So yeah, if you've had any experience making your own tooth care products, do let me know below. Any questions, just ask. So yeah, hopefully we'll be a nation of natural smilers. So see you. Oh, that's it. That's the last Wild Harvest Potter for a while. So thank you if you've joined me for everyone. And yeah, comments below please about toothpaste. Take care. Bye.